two sides of the war, like every so often we have an epiphany of just like so there's this thing I've been thinking about for years and years and years. But like I have an epiphany, like, oh, I think like I haven't thought about it this succinctly before. So we're always thinking about good versus evil. Um we're always thinking about that war between good and evil. And one of the things I hate philosophically, like actually, yeah, my biggest pet peeve, uh, which is a mild way of saying it, my biggest pet peeve, in like both philosophy and theology, and maybe law, maybe more pragmatically than that also, but like that there's this well, because we know, or the term, the battle between good and evil, the light must prevail. Yet at the same time, so that's, good versus evil, the light must prevail. That's a very succinct way of encapsulating like the hope in our hearts of aspiration towards goodness, towards greatness and great goodness, right? Not all the good is great, and all that is great is not good. But the great goodness and the good greatness, right? Which are kind of two separate things that come together. That's like the epitome of humanity, of angelicism, of knowledge, of love. That which is both good and great. Because there are great evil things. So to be great alone is maybe not so great. It's definitely not always not so good. Uh, I'd like to apologize for my hubris because I know I'm being like, "Ooh, like I know stuff," but it's not that. It's that I've spent several hours in solitude thinking about stuff, and all of a sudden I thought to myself, I have a way to condense what I've been thinking about for years into something a little more crystalline, into something that's amorphous and globule, and kind of bringing it back not to a crystal, but like more crystalline. So it's more like a handful of mushed clay, which is technically speaking more crystalline than an amorphous gaseous expansion of ruminations, right? Maybe, I don't know. And certainly I'm off the point right now. The war between good and evil. And one of the things, so I said, like, the battle of the light against the darkness, the battle of good against evil, the light must prevail. Like that's such an ingrained ethos in all of humanity, frankly, and certainly in the West, that like it's almost more fundamental. Well, if you're in the West and if you're at all in the crystal sphere, if you're at all in the Anglosphere, like being spread upon the cross, however you are spread upon that cross, however you are oriented, like it's the pegs in the hands, it's the pegs in the feet, right? But then there's that spear through the center of the sternum, right? A little more St. Thomas. I'll leave that for another time, but I wanted to plant that Easter egg. Which now I'm wondering, what is the St. Thomas version of Easter? But anyway, never mind St. Peter, never mind St. Andrew. But what I hate about that idea of when we're talking about good and evil, because I've already explained one way, like the battle against good and evil, the light prevails over the darkness. It's an ethos. It's this thing we aspire to. It's inbuilt into even philosophies that butt heads, even into theologies that butt heads. The ethos proceeds in the same way that Mary proceeds, because Mary is in every theology, or should I say, within the not only the West, but within the West, within the global South, within the Near East, within the Far East, like not everywhere, but like the ethos, the theology of Mary, right? Because all the Abrahamic religions, which encapsulates more than half of the world, Mary is predominant. Abraham is predominant. Like, Abraham is predominant. Mary's predominant. Jesus is predominant. And then in Islam, Jesus, it's kind of like the arguments that Arian made against Nicholas. Because there was that whole thing in the, I don't know, 3rd, 4th century, whatever. And Arianism was a big deal, but like, it's not exactly the same, but like, what Arian said and what Muhammad said about Jesus are kind of alike when, right, they're not. There's all kinds of ways you could be like, no, Arian was like this and Muhammad was like this, but when you compare both of them to, when you triangulate them with Nicholas, Saint Nicholas, then they seem more together. And they are together. And it's important that they're together. Now, should we hate them? Should we hate Arian? Should we hate Muhammad? Which comes to a bigger question. Should we hate Pharaoh? What Pharaoh? Just Pharaoh. In the Bible, it didn't say which Pharaoh. So all kinds of archaeologists and anthropologists and cuckoo wacko fucking Kemet fucking, right? Sethian Hebrewites, whatever, have all kinds of, actually really cool stuff. And everybody's right and everybody's wrong. The reason why there's all these gaps in the story and why it spreads out in the Apocrypha and why we can't find a like definitive line around this thing. It's like, if we search here, it's like, this is in, this is out. No, wait, this is in, this is out. It's like this electric border. It's definite at any one instant, but from instant to instant, and how long is an instant, by the way, there is a granularity. There is a pixel scope. But our place in space and time only allows us so much grasp of it. I think I just left several loose threads. If so, I'll leave you to sew them together where I fail to annotate them later. I do annotate my own videos, but like realistically, I only annotate about like 1 or 2%, maybe 10% of my loose threads. But anyway, what I was trying to get to this whole time, and I know I've been going on and on and on, what I'm trying to get to this whole time is one of the philosophical and theological things that I hate the most is that evil is the other side of the coin of good. That is not true. That is not true. Evil and good are not. When you see the yin yang and you see the white and the black and that the evil and the good, that is not true. It's not true. Evil happens in the gap. Like if you have a yin yang, in that gap between white and black, that's where evil exists. And that's the thing when we show the yin yang, because we always show it just with like white and black, but we never show the border. And in the real world, that border actually has area. It's bad enough that it exists at all, but that border has area, so there's actually 3 colors. And at this moment in time, the gray is very, 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 very large. The border is big. In fact, most of the world that we know is actually in the border. The border, which is gray, is actually evil. And that's where we live. The black, it's not evil. The black is loneliness. The black is despair. The black is seeing the gray. Like, you're looking at the gray. What do I mean the gray? I mean, when you watch a fox eat a squirrel, it brings what we might call this blackness upon you, this darkness upon you, but it's really this grayness upon you. If you accept it, which we do, because we have to, because we live in the gray lands. We don't live in the black lands. The black lands are a mother's love for her child when she sees her when a mother sees her child straying out of her reach of protection. Like, that's the blackness. The blackness is a mother watching her child stray. Now, that's completely synonymous. That's completely simpatico with God's love. That is God's love. That's not the opposite side of good. That is the greatness of good. Or that's a way to riff on it. I'm trying to be as precise as possible while allowing myself artistic license, if I may. Try to get back to that idea. Yeah. The yin yang is not good and evil. The yin yang is all good. It's all good. It's the smile of festival and of feast. And it is the darkness of fasting. And the purpose of self-imposed fasting is that we're mimicking, and it's actually, this is really interesting too scientifically, is that we evolved as fasters, but we were involuntary fasters. When religion came along, God had to, before like organized societal, before like agriculture, or before organized hunters and gatherers or whatever, before the organization of societies that allowed for constant food throughout the entire year for your whole life. Before that, we were involuntary fasters. The moment we became completely secure, or should I say, certain pockets of populations all of a sudden became secure annually. daily with their rations. And as soon as that happened, that's exactly the moment that God interjected God's self into the situation and imposed voluntary fasting. Mandatory, like from the priesthood making you fast. Like you have to fast. It's not trying to take something away from you. It's like you have, it's the way in which like God used evolution to get us to a point where we had all we needed. But because God used evolution to get us here, such that we created the environment where we could thrive, then God had to put on the brakes a little bit and say, yo, you got to fast, because it's like, this is how I got you here. I got you here by being starving motherfuckers hungry for a chance to do it right. It was hungry people who created the food distribution system, which has been an ongoing evolutionary process since Adam and Eve, you could say, or you could say, well, since Cain and Abel, you could say, or, and you could say since, well, definitely since mitochondrial Eve, but since that shrew, man. Since that, these days, one of the interesting places, and we should give this species a lot of room, the dogfish, I think it's called the dogfish, that fish that comes up and buries itself in the sand to get away from the killingness of the ocean. Like the land is a killing place, but the land is respite from the ocean. The ocean only kills. There's one law in the ocean. There's that song, nature is the law, right? Like, there's one law in the ocean: kill, eat. On the land, it's not necessarily that way. Like, I'm a vegan, but I'm not a vegan who hates meat eaters. Like, a lot of vegans hate meat eaters. I don't. But one of the missteps, and vegans make a lot of missteps, but like one of the missteps meat eaters make. Actually, I'll leave that for another time. Yeah, the whole thing between good and evil, black and white. Evil's that gray thing in the yin yang. It's the edge. And the border's inflated. I'll draw a picture. Bear with me, I'm drawing a little picture. It's not very pretty, but you'll get the point. So normally we think of a yin yang a little bit like this. Sorry, I drew it imperfectly. I have other videos where I draw it very perfectly, but so yin yang looks like this, and we talk about like the dark, like this is good, this is evil, but then there's a little bit of good in the evil and a little bit of evil in the good. That is not true. That's absolutely wrong. The darkness is sadness. The darkness is depression because we don't see good. This is perfection. This is where the sadness and the happiness destroy evil, destroy killingness, destroy hubris, destroy murderous hunger, destroy butchery. Like this is the butcher of butchery. Christ is the butcher of butchery, but that is also what this represents. And it's not good and evil are not, they're not on opposite sides of each other, because the devil is not minus God. Like one God does not, minus one God does not equal the devil. It's absolutely not it. It's the Mother and the Father. It's Mary and the Holy Ghost. Who did Mary marry? Why is Mary the Queen of Heaven? How are the Holy Ghost, God, Christ triangulated in the Trinity, in the Catholic Trinity? How are they triangulated? There's like a million ways to go into it, but one of them is that who is Mary married to? God? Christ? Well, Mary is God's daughter. But Mary is Jesus' what? Wait. Mary is Jesus' mother. And Mary is God's daughter. And Jesus is God. And you married your mom? You married your daughter? But no. Mary married the Holy Ghost. Before you were, I am. That's the Holy Ghost. That's not God. It's just a way of talking about it. Before you were, I am. That's the Holy Ghost, motherfucker. Before you were, I am. That's the Holy Ghost. Outside of time, kind of before God, kind of before Jesus, and after God and Jesus. Does Jesus change over time? Does God change? What is perfection? Is perfection infinite? Or is perfection the largest compound number, which is mistaken for infinity, because only God is close enough to it to appreciate it. And yet So my other picture, just to make my point, is that what evil is the gap between the yin and the yang, the gray thing, right? Bear with me as I draw this picture. It's going to be super sloppy, but I'm just trying to make this point about how the yin yang and the whole evil and good are not opposite sides of the coin. They are absolutely not opposite sides of the coin. Evil and good, they're not opposition. It's not the left and the right. It's like the left and the right. You want a good left and you want a good right. So politically, I've switched from the left to the right, but that's only for now. It depends what each one means. And for right now, man, the left is just completely off point. Because it's which came first, the chicken or the egg? But at this point, people got to get up into finances and distributions, and people got to science up. People got to economic up. people gotta learn more and be smarter, act upon it, speak about it. Well, that's easy to say for me right now while I'm talking to myself on my phone and posting a video that I hope no one watches until I'm dead. We gotta start somewhere, right? Just got a few more things to do here, and then hopefully I will make this metaphor clear. Just drawing this nice little picture. This is a terrible picture, but hopefully it illustrates the point. I kind of want to take just a little more longer than I should on it, just to make it just a little bit better, for crying out loud. Give me a sec, give me a sec. I'm almost there, I'm almost there, I'm almost there. Alright, so this is the yin yang we're living in, right? So this is the, well, if it were perfect, like if this was a perfect yin yang, this is the way, you know, it works good, you know. Now, also it could be this balance but also flared out in different ways with the black and the white. Like this is, but we need it balanced. This is imbalanced. This is what our yin yang looks like today. I tried to make a little white spot right there, but it's hard to tell because I only scribbled. But that's the little yangy yin. But it's like here we don't see any gray, so to speak. There's a little, but it's not supposed to be, because you're supposed to imagine this is like a perfect little ideogram, you know. So here there's no gray, but here there's all this gray, which is the border expanded, which is evil. That's the situation. Took me a long time to say it, but I've never really said it that way before, so that actually kind of works out. If you made it this far, maybe you get it. The black and the white, it's not good versus evil. That's not, it's happiness versus sadness. But there is such a thing as true happiness. It's just being happy in this world is so difficult until you see the movement of history. You can latch your happiness onto that. And that's a major, like theological, philosophical, meditative, spiritual exercise to attach yourself to the movement of history so far as you know it. Seeing the beauty coming, even as you see yourself getting older and decaying, and maybe like in my case, my situations are like, some of my situations are better than I could have ever thought they could be. But some are worse than I ever thought they could be. So it's in a weird equivalency, but myself outside of it, when I look around the world around me, and it's the same in my physical environment, but as I see the world has evolved, I see this thing, and it looks like the world's getting darker, but that's not really what's happening. The world is getting lighter, and it's shining a light on the darkness of the world. That's very different. The world is not getting darker. It seems like it's getting darker because we're seeing more of the truth. And the truth is dark. Or there's a lot of darkness in the truth. It's a hard truth to come to. But yeah, this is where we are. And and I think, well, one way of talking about it is like we need to strip away all that gray, come back to this, and then we can build, like, this is a large structure, and we're like, oh, we got to keep the large structure. No, we don't. We got to trim shit down to bare bones, so to speak. Maybe. I don't know. It's just I'm riffing on it. And once we get here, then we can expand that black and that white in beautiful patterns and largenesses that like totally exceed like all of our expectations and dreams and hopes. Prophecies. But like, we can't just keep trying to make this blob that's out of shape, this divorcing of the light and the dark. If the light and the dark divorce, only the gray will exist, and then it will collapse and there will just be nothing. What we need to do is destroy the gray, come back to stable simplicity, and then expand that beauty. I'm not saying that's the truth. I'm not saying like whatever, but like, and that wasn't even as succinct as the way somebody's firing fireworks, which is weird. This is a weird day to fire fireworks. But anyway. I like that. Good and evil are not opposed. It's more like sadness and happiness are the good. And happiness and anger are evil. I think that's a better way of thinking about it. Like, in a loose, just way of talking about it.